How to spot the quiet borderline. There she is sitting there all by herself. She says, I push my anger deep inside. So I'm not a mean person like those other borderlines, she says. Hi, this is Mike, and this is the One Thing That Heals BPD and NPD Abuse channel. And I did get into a romantic relationship with what people have labeled as a quiet borderline. So if this is important to you to understand these different supposed subtypes of BPD, I'm going to do what I can to help you untangle all of it. And we're going to take a look and see what is important for you to know if you have been in a romantic relationship with somebody who suffers from undiagnosed, untreated, and or toxic borderline personality disorder. I tell you how I survived the worst experience of my life, the most painful experience of my life, in my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend, which you can get on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can also go to audiobooks.thunderwizard.com to see all of my audiobooks. If you have a question that you want to ask me that I'm not addressing, or you think your situation is unique and you want to get some air, some sunshine on it, go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. I'll make a video about it. Other people will benefit from me answering your question. All right, so the quiet borderline. Look at her. She's not really a borderline, is she? Because she's quiet. Because borderlines are supposed to be explosively unpredictable, and they yell at you and scream at you and slash your tires and do all kinds of other things. Well, this was important to me in the beginning because I didn't know what borderline personality disorder was. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on with my girlfriend. I didn't know what the heck was happening, and I didn't even understand my super strong attachment to her, the addiction that I had. I couldn't get away from her. I kept trying to extricate myself, but I couldn't for so many reasons. I felt guilty. I felt attached. I felt responsible. I had hope. She, sometimes was just so unbelievably wonderful. And, that got me thinking, there's some hope here. But it was just miserable. It was just this hole in my gut that kept on getting worse and worse and worse. And I kept on losing my identity, losing my life. I had a good life. I was known for being somebody who had a strong opinion, a strong sense of self, and I was all about success. And I taught all that, and that was just getting destroyed just by being with this beautiful, blue-eyed, red-haired little sex kitten. So what are the 4 subtypes? Now, if it's important for you, if you think this means something, I will indulge you, but then we'll find out that this actually means nothing. So according to, I don't know who or what, it's actually not even an official thing, to be honest with you. Real psychologists do not buy into the borderline subtypes. And I'm going to give you my take on why they don't do that, and I am in agreement with you. But for those of us who like to find, where's my borderline? What is she like? I'll explain why you want to do that. There's 4 types. There's the discouraged borderline. She includes avoidant, depressive, or dependent behaviors. There's the impulsive borderline, which includes antisocial or approval-seeking behaviors, dangerous behaviors. There's the petulant borderline, who includes passive-aggressive behaviors and also gets angry. And then there's the self-destructive borderline, which includes depressive or self-destructive behaviors. Now, the reality is that I just described every single borderline out there. They all have this. So the reason why it was important for me is because, again, I had hope. I couldn't tolerate the thought of it not working out. And what I wanted to do by looking at these different subtypes was I wanted to find out exactly what her subtype was, why she did what she did, because I thought there was something I could do to help her. I would be able to fix her. I would be the super empath who would come in fly down with my cape flapping in the wind, and I would be able to know what was really going on with her. And then, of course, I would be the one that she needed. I would save her, and everything would be wonderful. And she would look at me with those moist blue eyes forever and say, "You saved me." And I would be absolutely in heaven for the rest of my life. Maybe you feel the same way. Well, look, this whole idea of, quiet versus antisocial borderline is all nonsense, because that's all borderline personality disorder. And more importantly for you, this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks when it comes to people who are in romantic relationships with BPDs, is the difficulty in accepting the fact that borderline personality disorder is literally just narcissistic personality disorder. As you know, it's my biggest pet peeve on the channel. People want to say, they'll say things to me like, "Oh, well, the way you describe it, she's not a borderline. You're talking about she's got NPD." People will say, "I want to know, was my girlfriend, did she have narcissistic tendencies, or was she a pure borderline?" One person said, "I want to know if my girlfriend was a borderline or if she was a covert narcissist." Again, people use this word covert narcissist completely not knowing what it means. Not even knowing that there are psychologists for years who have been classifying borderline personality disorder as covert narcissism or vulnerable narcissism. Narcissism is what's important here. So again, there's two ways. You've got narcissistic personality disorder, which is created at an infant, at the age when the child is an infant, and they are so traumatized from lack of attachment that they create this internal fantasy in order to survive. And in their fantasy, they are perfect. And there are two strategies. There are two main strategies for them living out this fantasy. One is what we associate with the sociopathic narcissist, where they are God, they control the universe, and they pull you into their fantasy. You're a stick figure, you don't have any personality or value, but you might be a good actor for the role. So they pull you in, they put the costume on you, give you the script, and then your job is to let them be God and you're their worshiper. Whereas the borderline has the exact same need, which is they have this fantasy where they are perfect and loved, but they do it in an opposite way. Instead of internalizing and pulling you into an internal fantasy, they try to paint their fantasy onto external reality. And you are still a stick figure walking around in front of their canvas. They grab you and they put you on the canvas and they paint you into the picture. And then she's going to sit back and relax and have you regulate. And she's going to passively allow you to regulate her emotions. Whereas the NPD is not passive and wants to be the regulator of everything. But it's the exact same thing. So we look at the narcissist and we go, the narcissist is sociopathic. They plan out your demise. They're evil. They have no emotions, which is not accurate. And we say the opposite about the borderline. We say, oh, the borderline isn't a narcissist because they have empathy, they have compassion, but you're mistaking masturbatory emotional experiences for empathy. You know, I'm not big on chick flicks. I never have been. You know, and I've had girlfriends and they want to go to chick flicks, and it's, you know, it's masturbatory, it's porn. It's, you know, you go and it's, you know, the storyline's always the same. It's, you know, the really handsome guy that's unattainable, and then there's the girl who has 3 different boyfriends that she has to choose from, and oh my God, which one do I want? And that's, oh, and then it's a match made in heaven, and then he dies at the end, or he sinks down below the waves, and then it was unrequited love, and then they cry, and it's all masturbation. It's all emotional masturbation. It's entertainment. I got nothing against it. Guys do it with action flicks or you know, watching MMA or whatever. It's the same thing. So borderlines don't have empathy. They entertain themselves with these feelings, but it has no connection to long-term reality. The fantasy disappears when they go to sleep. They wake up and they create a fantasy, and then they go to sleep and it disappears. You disappear along with them. So please get over this idea that your borderline is different, that your borderline has empathy, that your borderline is not a sociopath. It's just, she has a different way of expressing it. I use the word she with borderlines because borderlines, their form of narcissistic personality disorder, the strategy of their disorder is to be more passive about it, more, quote, feminine as opposed to more masculine, even though you can be, whatever sex, you can be narcissist or borderline. So the quiet borderline is known for stuffing their anger down. And my borderline was a quiet borderline. She almost never, I'm going to say almost never. She almost never said anything, that could be on paper, an abusive thing. She never called me names. She did passive aggressively do things that were extremely devaluing, but she never stood there and yelled at me and said, you're this and you're that. You know what your problem is. She didn't slash my tires. She didn't do any of that stuff. She was more the discouraged borderline where she would get moody and create all kinds of drama, but the drama would be more like going into the bedroom and slamming the door and then putting on her headphones and meditating for 4 hours. That kind of ghosting. Or, she would call me up the next day and say, I've been thinking about this all day, as though that meant something. She's about to completely destroy me, but because she's saying it calmly and because she thought about it all day and didn't just, react, that's really what she's saying. What she's saying is, I didn't explode in the moment when you said that one word that pushed my buttons. And since I've spent 24 hours thinking about it, then what I'm doing now is not abusive. I don't want anything to do with you because I saw a bird fly from west to east, and that's a bad omen. And I had this feeling in my heart that I knew that you were actually a reptilian demon who was seeking to destroy my life. And now that I think about it, you said 2 words, a week ago that mean something really bad. And so therefore I've decided I can't have anything to do with you. So thank you and goodbye, click. And to her, that's what? It was perfectly normal. I was loving. I was kind. No, she's still a borderline. She's still splitting. She's still devaluing. She's still discarding. And she's still doing it in really strange ways. The fact that she would lock herself in her room and meditate for 4 hours and then be completely unfunctional. The fact that she didn't remember anything that she said. The fact that she would go, from one extreme to another. The fact that she, would ghost me and disappear. That she would gaslight. All of that is a borderline. And in fact, borderlines actually make the decision to choose how they want to respond to their disorder. She, my borderline ex, actually used to be what they got here as a petulant borderline, which is the one that we associate with the, ASPD, the antisocial personality, the angry, the one that slashes your tires and screams at you and calls you names. She used to be that, but she told me how she made the decision that she was never going to do that. So she follows that behavior, but she still has borderline personality disorder. She's still filled with rage. She's still filled with fear. She's still filled with anxiety. She's still filled with self-hatred, and she has an inability to attach, and you get close to her and she has to split on you. So the behavior of the borderline is always going to be the same. Their personality and how they choose to experience their BPD is a salad. And all of these, every single borderline has all of these. My borderline did. My borderline had periods where she would go out and have just crazy, destructive, drug sprees and sex with everybody in the world. And then there were times when she would get herself together and she would put it together and she would stuff all of her anger down and she would go out of her way to then show the world how perfect she was. And then she would be self-destructive, and then she would be irrational, and then she would be all of these things she would be. and she would have different periods in her life when she would be different. There might be somebody who's a quiet borderline their whole life. So what? It doesn't mean anything. And having been on the other end of it, you listening to me, what's important to you is you think your quiet borderline is less destructive because she doesn't slash your tires and yell at you and throw coffee mugs at your head. And so you think, well, she's not abusive. Well, does she lie? Does she manipulate? Does she cause all kinds of trauma? Does she vacillate between not wanting you to leave and then not wanting to have anything to do with you? Does she accuse you of things that you've thought and said that you never thought or said? Does she do all the things that borderlines do? The fact that somebody is splitting on you and happen to be screaming and slashing your tires, and somebody else is splitting on you like mine and looking at you with no emotion in their eyes and saying, I've decided in my head that you're doing all these crazy things and that you're from the planet Zeta Reticuli, and therefore I can't have anything to do with you. What? I didn't get angry. What are you getting so upset about? I remember my heart was just destroyed, and I said, you're murdering me. You're destroying me. And she says, oh my God, you're so intense. Jeez, relax. It doesn't matter. Get over it. Borderlines, those quiet borderlines out there, you think that I know that the strategy of the quiet borderline is you don't want to be a bad person, or you don't want to look like a bad person, or both. And so instead of acting immediately with the rage that comes to you the moment somebody disappoints you, which, let's be clear, could be you literally got a strange feeling in your head. They could be doing absolutely nothing differently from one moment to the next, but you get a thought that triggers you, and therefore you decide they've done something or they're not meeting your needs. Or, as I've said before, it could be something as simple as I looked at my watch. I had gas. Oh my God, that look on his face. The fact that you didn't rage at that moment and get up and explode, the fact that you shoved it down and decided to deal with it later, the fact that you weren't capable of shoving it down. I know some of you think, I'm just going to shove it down and it'll go away. And it doesn't. And then at some point it builds up and it explodes. Here's the thing about quiet borderlines as well. They're not quiet all the time. There will come a point where they won't rage. They'll want to rage, they'll want to explode, and it'll just build up to the point where they can't hold back anymore. They might explode in your face. You might have a quiet borderline who out of the blue does something she's never done. She'll yell and scream and do strange things. She'll hit you. She might do something strange where it builds up and then she takes off, goes to Mexico. She might get in her car and drive to your cousin's house and have sex with him. She might try and kill herself. She's going to do something explosive and filled with rage and extremely abusive, but it's not going to be that she stood up and threw things at you. So this idea that there's this antisocial borderline, but then there are these well-behaved borderlines is nonsense, because they act out and they do the same thing. And the difference between a covert narcissist and a grandiose narcissist is simply the strategy that the person uses to deal with their dysregulation, right? They're just dysregulated, and they're trying a strategy which ends up being an extreme strategy to deal with an extreme dysregulation. I feel for them. But it doesn't mean anything. So I'm here to tell you that you wanting to figure out, here's why this is a problem for you. You're wanting to figure out what kind of borderline your borderline is has nothing to do with the fact that they have BPD. They still have NPD. They still are sociopathic, meaning that they don't have any long-lasting empathy for you. They have no ability to commit to a long-lasting behavior of love and unconditional support. They don't have that ability. So they don't have any, that's what I mean by sociopathy. They don't have any real empathy. They will hurt you. The fact of the matter is that the core issue of BPD in romantic relationships is that it is doomed. Even if it takes 30 years to play out, what will happen is the closer you get to your borderline, you thinking the closer I get to her, the more she's trusting me and the more hope there is of her turning around and loving me and not harming me. When the opposite is happening. The thing she wants the most is her kryptonite. Intimacy and true love is the one thing she cannot tolerate, and she has to destroy it. She will either destroy herself or destroy you or both. But that is the nature of BPD, whether she happens to be an explosive, angry borderline or the quiet, petulant type, or if she's impulsive or self-destructive, which is all the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's not going to go anywhere. And the fact that you are trying to figure it out means that you think you can control her. And that's abusive. What? I'm not abusive. All I do is take care of her. All I do is try and love her. Well, if you really loved her, then you would let her go. Because she's telling you in no uncertain terms that she doesn't have any control and that she can't and won't love you. If you get into the mind of borderlines, when they're honest with themselves, they will say things to themselves like, if I'm really, really mean to him, he'll leave. If I do this, he'll never come back. This is their strategy. You think they've just lost control and they need help. And they may portray it that way, partly because they're confused. Part of them desperately wants to be loved. And they don't want to act destructively, but they can't help themselves. And then there's the other part of them that can't tolerate being truly seen and experienced. It's just far too frightening. It's like their skin is, I remember there was a borderline that I became friends with very briefly. And, I figured out real quick, oh, this is a borderline. Especially when she told me that her mom was borderline. So, But there were times when I would, I would be attentive and I would sit and look at her, and she would say, "Why are you staring at me?" And I'd say, "I'm not staring at you. I'm listening to you. I'm giving you respect and attention. You're talking and I'm listening to you." She's like, "No, what you're doing is really intense, and I need you to stop doing it." And she says, "It feels like my skin's coming off." It's just. And then she started to explain why she liked to be abused in the bedroom and things like that. It's for that reason. She couldn't tolerate actual connection. She couldn't even tolerate me sitting there just looking at her, listening and caring. She couldn't tolerate it. So this is what's going on with your borderline. And so the fact that you think you can figure out what is going on with her means that you want to control her because you want her love. You want to take her captive into your codependent fantasy. And in your codependent fantasy, you will gain value by healing her, and then she will love you, and then you will be the hero. And it never happens. I'm here to tell you it never happens. That story never works out. Having said that, borderlines, if you're out there is hope, but you got to get your ass to therapy, and you got to do it because you want to do it, and you have to work your tail off because you want to be happy inside, not for anything else. What I've heard that works is DBT therapy, regular therapy, like weekly or bi-weekly with a therapist, weekly group therapy, and then doing the DBT exercises every day, like your life depended on it. After years of doing that, you might be able to control your symptoms. And then you'll realize that codependent guy that you were with that was trying to fix you all the time, you'll realize that he actually was not the best partner for you. So take that, those of you who think that you can get your borderline into therapy. If she goes to therapy and gets better, she's going to dump you like a hot potato. So either way, you're going to get rejected. So how do you survive this? Because once you've been infected by the borderline, there's no way for you not to get this horrific pain. I don't care how much time you spend, after the relationship is over. One guy left a comment saying, yeah, I'm okay now. I'm back doing my thing. I'm lifting weights and I'm banging girls like crazy. And it's like, yeah, well, that guy's in a huge amount of pain, and he's just now become a narcissist in the hopes of avoiding the damage that is still eating away inside of him. There's only one thing that will get rid of that pain. There's only one thing that will cure you. I am completely 100% cured of my little red-haired, blue-eyed sex kitten, 20 years younger than me, borderline girlfriend. I'm completely cured of the pain, of the sadness, of the anger, of the longing, of the fantasies. I have completely destroyed her narcissistic hold on me. Why? Not because I hate her. I don't. And not because I still think about how I wish I could help her. I don't. The opposite of love is not anger. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. I don't have any feelings. Not sociopathy. That's different. I'm not sociopathic. I don't have an attachment. And I literally I can't even remember her name most of the time. Only reason I even remember that I was in the relationship is because of this channel, and it's helpful to you. So if you want to be completely free of your pain, if you want to absolutely defeat your narcissistic abuser, there's only one way to do it. If you follow my suggestions completely and to the letter, I guarantee you complete healing. But you got to follow my instructions. I tell you exactly what to do in my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend, Amazon, Kindle, and Audible, audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. If you put half a second into searching my channel, I don't want to spend the $5 on an audiobook. Oh, fine, then just put a little bit of effort into my channel. I tell you exactly what to do if you look for it. All right, that's it. I wish you guys all the best. If you have read my book, please leave a review. I hope you like it, obviously an honest review, but please leave a review and subscribe and hit the bell button on the YouTube channel so you can be notified whenever I upload new videos. And askmike.thunderwizard.com. I thought it was a great idea. So far, only one person has taken advantage of it. I think it's awesome. Take a look at it and see if there's something I can do to help you and help others at the same time. That's it. I wish you guys all the best. See you all next time.